Better than a tummy tuck? Are they talking about traditional foods? Let's talk about this. Hi, sweet friends. I'm Mary, and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferments, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning about those things, consider subscribing to my channel. And don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, the other day I was at the grocery store, and as I'm going through the checkout line, they have a lot of magazines there, and I always skim them and see what the headlines are and whatnot. And this magazine, First for Women, it's the April 5th, 2021 edition, had this big statement on the front, better than a tummy tuck. And then I read what was underneath it, and it said, over 50? I'll raise my hand on that one. Just can't lose? I've had my struggles. Aging cell walls that trap toxins plus fat are to blame. Well, that intrigued me. So, of course, I said, well, I've got to put this on the conveyor belt, and I got to pay for this and take this home with me because I've got to read this article. Better than a tummy tuck. What could be better than a tummy tuck? Well, I open it, and it's page 26, page 26, where they have the discussion, if you've got this issue at home. And again, the heading on it, it says, a weight loss discovery, belly fat goes first, better than a tummy tuck. A two-page, full-page article here. Well, I start reading, and I'm very surprised because I get just a few sentences into the article. And who are they talking about but Dr. Kate Shanahan? I have her book, Dr. Kate Shanahan, and she wrote this amazing book called Deep Nutrition. And the subtitle on this book is Why Your Genes Need Traditional Food. Well, the minute that I'm reading this article and I see her name mentioned, I know that somehow there's going to be a discussion about traditional foods. And if you've been with me a while, you know that that's what I'm very interested in. I've always been a very big fan of the book Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon ever since it came out back, I think, in 1999. I've fed my family that way. I've been eating that way. And of course, I've had my struggles, with weight loss and whatnot that I've shared with you in previous videos about my journey. But really incorporating traditional foods into my diet, along with some other things regarding seasonal eating and whatnot, have helped me to lose a considerable amount of weight so far. Now, I'm still on my weight loss journey, but when I came across this article, I thought, well, maybe as I continue on my weight loss journey using traditional foods, my belly will eventually be flat, since the belly fat goes first. So in any event, I read down and then I see Kate Shanahan. Oh my goodness. And right away I'm like, oh my goodness, she's the author of Deep Nutrition, a book that I love. She also has a website, and she talks all about making traditional foods. And what she has in her book is, as I said, the subtitle was Why Your Genes Need Traditional Food. And this is, I gotta tell you, this is a fascinating book and all about, if you're interested in genetics and how it plays a role in your nutrition, how it plays a role in what your weight is, how it plays a role in what diseases you may develop or not develop. Fascinating. But she talks about featuring the 4 pillars of the human diet. And those 4 pillars, she says, will help you lose weight, sharpen your mind, improve your energy, look and feel younger, and ensure the health of your children. So this is just a wonderful book. It's a wonderful support to Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. These really go hand in hand. But in any event, I read on the article, and what they're talking about is how, and this could really apply, I think, to anyone at any age And something that you may want to do to incorporate now, regardless of your age, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you're over 50 and you're struggling because your cells have, become somewhat stagnant based on your previous diet. But as you read on, what they're talking about in the article is that many, and this is a magazine devoted to women, but it may possibly apply, the subject may apply to men as well. But what they're talking about is the fact that modern American diets are very low in a compound known as lecithin. And guess where lecithin is in? It's in organ meats and egg yolks. And what have we been told for so long not to eat? Organ meats and eggs. So this article goes on to discuss how incorporating foods rich in lecithin into your diet can really help to begin to energize your cells and help them release potentially trapped fat. Now, the article goes into a lot of detail, and they devote 4 pages to it, and they give you some ideas on recipes and what to eat and foods that you should be incorporating into your diet. But they do veer a little away from what Dr. Kate, she often refers to herself as Dr. Kate, what Dr. Kate truly recommends. They also bring in some information from a woman named Louise Gittleman that some of you may be familiar with. I forget, she's had the Fat Flush diet or something. I think she's had many books over the years. She's a nutritionist. And so I think that it is very hard for people today to rush out and tell you, other than people like Dr. Kate, other than people like some of the other doctors and nutritionists who subscribe to this way of eating, like a Sally Fallon from Nourishing Traditions and various doctors who follow what she recommends along with Dr. Kate. I think that you find people who subscribe to the keto movement will often encourage high-fat foods like egg yolks and like organ meats. However, I think on the broader scale, it can sometimes be hard for a magazine like this to rush out and start telling people, you got to be eating those organ meats, which are going to be your richest source of lecithin. But they do discuss incorporating eggs into your diet because the egg yolk is very rich in lecithin. But Louise Gittleman leans more to the non-animal sources of lecithin, because that may be like a little bit of a safer area to tread on, and one that people who may have not come to embrace eating organ meats and maybe embrace eating eggs and other forms of animal products that are generally considered rich in saturated fats, if they're worried about that. So Louise is talking about incorporating coconut and olive oil and avocado oil, and by replacing, vegetable oils and whatnot, the more processed vegetable oils from your grocery store, that by incorporating coconut oil, olive oil, and avocado oil can help as well, since they do have some lecithin in them. However, if you really want to get those really rich sources of lecithin, you're going to be looking to what Dr. Kate is recommending with organ meats, eggs, and so on and so forth. And Louise goes on to talk about something that I am really not, and it may not be specifically her talking about it, or it's just something that they incorporate with the recipes. They talk about, buying lecithin just it looks like little granules, and incorporating it into smoothies and things like that. I'm not really a big fan of that because I always feel that it's not just going to be lecithin by itself that's going to help us. It's going to be everything else that's along with the lecithin. So eating the egg, I always feel the whole egg is always better than just incorporating some lecithin granules into some of your food. Eating the organ meats, like your liver, it could be beef liver. I've shared with you in the past, I have a recipe where I show you how to make beef liver nuggets, which are deep fried and very tasty. And it's something that I really fed my son on a regular basis when he was growing up, and he would dip them in homemade fermented ketchup. And that's a wonderful way to incorporate liver into your diet. And my husband joked, I think when I made the video, I called it How to Get Your Kids to Eat Liver or something like that. And my husband said, you should have included, and husbands too. Because that is a very tasty way to eat beef liver if it's not something that you've regularly incorporated into your diet. And another wonderful liver dish is chopped chicken livers. That can be made very easily by cooking up some chicken livers, mixing with a hard-boiled egg and a little bit of chicken fat or schmaltz, and pureeing that all in the food processor, and you have a wonderful liver pate. So that's definitely two ways to get organ meats, specifically liver, into your diet. But then there are so many other things that you can make, and often the best recipes for a lot of organ meats will come from traditional cultures. And if you stop at your library and find cookbooks that are based on the recipes of traditional cultures, Eastern European cultures or Western European cultures or Asian cultures, and you'll learn how to prepare different things. Like in England, kidneys are, or were at one time at least, a very popular dish. Beef kidneys, lamb kidneys. So these are things that can definitely be enjoyed and prepared in a way, in a traditional way, that makes them very tasty. And then you're getting this lecithin into your diet, and hopefully all of this is helping to flatten our bellies. It was so interesting when I read this, and I went and pulled Dr. Kate's book off my bookshelf, because something that I have found that has been interesting is that when our son was younger and home with us, I think that we were really eating more organ meats. And then when he grew up and moved on to go to college, and we started preparing less organ meats. So when I read this article and I reread some of the chapters in Dr. Kate's book, I said, you know what? I'm going to get back on the bandwagon of making more regular meals, including organ meats. Now, we do eat a good amount of eggs, generally on the weekend, when we have time to make a nice egg breakfast, but we're not eating them every day. So now I'm even thinking that, gee, maybe we often during the week, we're a little more busy and we're eating oatmeal. And now I'm thinking, gee, during the week, I think, just fry up an egg or have a soft-boiled egg, something to accompany our oatmeal to help incorporate more lecithin into our diets. And so I think that's another thing that we can do, because the egg yolk is rich in lecithin. And the article goes on to talk about how when you have a sufficient level of lecithin in your diet and then in your cells, it can do a lot of things other than just help you lose weight, specifically belly fat. Often things that contribute to women specifically having belly fat are things related to menopause and menopausal symptoms, as well as fatigue. And adding lecithin to your diet, they explain in this article, can help reduce those menopause symptoms and the associated fatigue, as well as sometimes the bloat and the different things that we feel that tend to distend our bellies, that sometimes make us look like we have a big belly, but it's not one that's necessarily filled with fat. It's sometimes just a process of, in a woman's body, of getting older, going through menopause, and having different levels of hormones that actually cause bloating, and yes, eventually the deposits of fat in this midsection. So is the headline a little sensationalized? Yes, probably. They want to sell magazines. I'm not going to blame them for that. But the bottom line is that if you have enough lecithin in your diet by eating organ meats and by eating eggs and by getting rid of polyunsaturated vegetable oils and processed foods and artificial this, artificial that, as you decrease those foods and add in these good foods, first the lecithin-rich foods, as well as just traditional whole foods in general, you will find that often as you lose weight, your midsection will start to look slimmer. So that's basically what they're saying. And for those of us who would be terrified to ever even entertain getting a tummy tuck, I would never want to do that. I would be so afraid to have that type of operation. But I think for those of us who will never be entertaining a tummy tuck, this is something that can at least give us some hope that for us women, especially those of us who are older and over 50, I'm in my mid-60s, that we can maybe reduce some of the appearance of our belly as we overall lose some weight. And they do go on to talk in the article that to increase the weight loss that you're going to generate by eating lecithin-rich foods, you can they say speed slimming and age in reverse. Now, who doesn't want to age in reverse? So in addition to the lecithin foods, as you're adding in good, wholesome, lecithin-rich foods, and you're beginning to eliminate processed foods from your diet, they talk about bringing in more traditional foods that are whole foods, like berries and a peanut butter, like just a natural peanut butter. If you can buy a peanut butter that's either made from roasted peanuts or peanuts that have been soaked and then dried and then made into peanut butter, are even easier to digest. But they talk about how peanut butter, it can be very slimming. It's very high in vitamin E, and increasing the vitamin E in your diet helps. And of course, berries being very high in all kinds of antioxidants help fortify the membrane of the cell. So as it's pushing out the fat and the good things are coming into your cell from the lecithin and other traditional foods, the cell membrane becomes stronger and better able to hold in those nutrients. And so berries, peanut butter, and then they talk about incorporating sweet potatoes into your diet, which are rich in carotenoids. I hope I'm saying that right. But these also help in work on the cell membrane by increasing, it's what they refer to it as, increasing the fluidity and making it better able to absorb, like with the vitamin E and like with the antioxidants from the berries. All of these contribute to your cells being able to better absorb these good nutrients that you're going to be giving them from these nutrient-dense foods, these traditional nutrient-dense foods that you're going to eat. And this is basically, what they're getting at. The bottom line is that moving to eating a more traditional foods diet is going to benefit you over the long run as you age, to help keep your cells in good condition and help you eat better, help you slim down or stay slim as you keep your cells in better condition and keep them younger rather than aging. And all of these things together work to help you slim or to keep you slim, and hopefully to keep your belly a little flatter than it may be if you relied on not incorporating these traditional foods into your diet. And when it comes to incorporating traditional foods into your diet, it's really a process, and I've talked with you about this before. You know, it's a journey where when you're moving from a processed foods kitchen to a traditional foods kitchen. And you'll see many books that have come out today, you know, over the last number of years, as people have developed a greater interest in eating traditional foods. And you've seen a lot of books talking about bone broth diets. And bone broth, in many ways, is another food. It's a traditional food. It's a nutrient-dense food that, because of its high gelatin content, can really help you look younger and feel better. It helps soothe the digestive system, and also the high gelatin content is very good for our skin, our hair, our nails. And really, that's what you need to drink and to enjoy and to incorporate into your cooking and into your recipes, as opposed to worrying about buying some gelatin, you know, these powdered containers now of gelatin that are sold that can be quite costly. Instead, simply making some bone broth. And making bone broth can be very reasonable. You can use the carcass left over from a roast chicken. I have a video where I show you how to make roast chicken bone broth. I generally wait until I have about the carcass of 3 roast chickens, and I can literally make chicken bone broth for pennies. So that's something to keep in mind. So these are the foods that you want to be incorporating in order. This article is cute, you know, better than a tummy tuck. I've had my challenges. So I think there is a little bit of sensationalism to this. However, if this gets people thinking about making the transition from eating processed foods to eating traditional foods, then I'm all for it. I think that it can keep you younger, it can keep you healthier, it can help you slim if you've had challenges, you know, with losing weight. I think there are so many benefits to making this transition to eating a traditional foods diet. Eating more organ meats, eating cultured dairy, eating traditional fats like butter, lard, tallow. Yes, lard. I always laugh when I always get a lot of funny comments when they're like, Mary, lard? No. Eating ferments, fermented foods, eating bone broth, grass-fed meats, wild fish. And none of this needs to be expensive. These things can be done in your budget. You don't need to buy an expensive piece of fish that's wild caught. Sardines, kippers, these foods are very reasonably priced. Even canned salmon that's often wild caught, very reasonable. And I have recipes that I share with you where you can make salmon patties from canned salmon. And never turn your nose up to sardines. I have a recipe where I show you how to make sardines. It's almost like a little dip or pate. And I have had people come back to me. I tell them, just make it once and try it and see what you think. And they will write back to me and they will say, oh my goodness, I love this. I never thought I would eat sardines, but I love eating them this way. So that's something to consider. And I'll link to all of these recipes in the description below. But start about thinking about incorporating these traditional foods into your diet. If you've had challenges like me, I'll also link to the videos that I've shared about my weight loss journey. And it's ongoing, and I hope to give you an update, you know, over the next month or so. But try incorporating these traditional foods into your diet. And you can start slowly. Pretty much most people like eggs. And so you can start with eggs and start increasing that lecithin in your body. Berries are delightful and they're starting to come into season. Who doesn't like peanut butter? I love peanut butter. Just make sure, it's plain peanut butter and not loaded with sugar or other oils. And then sweet potatoes. How can you go wrong with that? You put some butter on a sweet potato, it's delicious. So definitely think about adding more traditional foods into your diet. And look for Dr. Kate's book. I'll put information below, but look for this in your library and read about what she talks about when it comes to losing weight, eating a traditional foods diet. Also look for Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. And 2 other books that I highly recommend are The 3-Season Diet and a book called Eat Wheat, both by Dr. John Douillard. And I'll put links below to all of these. But these are all books that have helped me on my weight loss journey. And if you'd like to learn more about my weight loss journey, be sure to click on this video over here, where I share how I got started losing weight, how I got interested in these different books and following these different programs, and how they've really helped me over the years. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.